How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Critically Incorrect, your weekly gaming podcast. I'm your host, Onliner Brandon, joined today by Charlie, if you wanted to say hi.
Hello.
And yeah, we got quite a bit of stuff to talk about as we teased last week. A lot of game releases out this week that we're going to be talking about: SMT 5, Battlefield 2042, Halo Infinite surprise, quote unquote surprise reveal, and more. So yeah, look forward to that. And yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of those starting right now with Out This Week, which we always start off with. So, Charlie, give us the rundown of what you've been playing over the last week or so, besides probably Halo and Battlefield specifics.
Yeah, so obviously I've played both Battlefield and Halo. We're gonna save our impressions on those for the end because they're kind of like the big games. But those are where I've put in most of my hours this week because I have been playing a lot of that. But aside from those, the main games I have been playing are the two new League of Legends spin-offs that did release this week. So that's Ruined King, which is like a turn-based RPG. I've put about 3 hours into that one so far, and I'm having a lot of fun. I'm not a big turn-based like fan, but it's really good so far. Obviously, I like League, so that does help, and I really enjoy like the world and characters of that universe. So there's a lot of story and a lot of cool twists with how the combat works and stuff, with battle pacing and things that I'm really enjoying. But so far, I'm having a lot of fun. It seems like it's a quite lengthy game as well. There's a lot of content in there, so I'm definitely looking forward to playing more of that. And then the other League spin-off game that came out the same day is like a rhythm runner game. It's made by the guys who did the Bit Trip Runner games, which are kind of like it's just an auto runner, but you're basically just doing actions to the beat. So in this game's case, you're playing as a character called Ziggs, who is all about explosives. So you're like bouncing around on the map to the beat of the music. It is pretty fun. It's just like your typical rhythm runner, just with a League kind of coat of paint on it. But the music's pretty fun. The animation's really cool and stuff. So that one only I think it's like $10. Like it's pretty cheap. I've played like an hour and a half of that one. I think I'm like halfway through the game. So for the price, it's not bad at all, really. You can't really go wrong with it. So I've been enjoying that one as well. But I think that's about it. Without checking super in depth. I think I played a little bit of Fortnite, but not much. Obviously, like the Naruto stuff came out this week or whatever, so I did hop in to just see what was new there the other day, but I haven't played much else. I think that is literally it.
Nice, nice. Good selection of games. Yeah, you mentioned Fortnite. I almost forgot about that. I played a bit of that. I've only played like, I want to say less than an hour. I played with Labs yesterday on stream. That was pretty fun. I did pick up Naruto, just because I don't know. I like I felt like if I support it, like even though it's already gonna get like a shit ton of sales, right? I'm like I want to see more anime collaborations for obvious reasons. So I'm like, might as well. It's not a bad skin. Besides that, it's been a busy week for me because obviously Shin Megami Tensei V dropped last Friday, so immediately I think that first night I spent like 3.5 hours playing through that. It's nice to pick up the Switch and get back into the ecosystem. And I played like the first few hours docked, and then I went handheld when I decided to lie down. Yeah, it was great, great experience. I think it's honestly one of Atlas's most ambitious games. Like it really feels like one of those. I know everyone's been wanting like a next gen Pokemon game where you see all the Pokemon around the world, but like that's really what SMT5 is for the SMT series. Like it's a huge open world that's like has no loading screens essentially. Currently, where I'm at like in the game right now, just running around, seeing the demons around the map before you fight them, which is a big change from like Nocturne. But there was like similar elements to that in 4, but now like the models are fully 3D and you can see them. It's just amazing. Gameplay's been great. There's like a really good mix of elements they've taken from Nocturne and SMT4. Yeah, I just can't wait to play more of that. I'm like totally now like 8 hours in or so. Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised. It's literally like I couldn't have asked for a better game currently at the moment. But yeah, I've also been playing quite a few stuff. We'll talk about Halo and Battlefield 2042 later. I played a bit of both of those. I did actually end up buying the GTA trilogy last week, and that has been probably really controversial, as you probably have seen online over the last week. I've only really played like the first hour of GTA 3, and I gotta say, like, I'm probably pretty disappointed with this remaster and how it was handled. Like, first of all, I like really didn't look up the reviews before going in because I generally don't do that, and obviously this one is like a re-release and it's by Rockstar. I thought it was okay, but apparently like Rockstar themselves didn't even work on this. It was like some outlet Grove Street Games who have only really worked on like ports to like mobile and like very few console ports before. Yeah, they were the ones in charge of this. I've only played GTA 3, but so far it's been kind of a mess on PlayStation, just because the frame rate is pretty inconsistent. Yeah, obviously the look of the characters is interesting. I definitely think there's like a few aspects that are good in terms of lighting, but in other departments they kind of took away the atmospheric vibe of the city, and then obviously some of the models kind of changed it for the worse in my opinion. Besides that, there's some good quality of life changes. It's not like a total downside, right? Like GTA 3 never had like a map that was, I believe, introduced in Vice City, so it's been nice to have that. The GPS system that we're used to now with GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2, and even like the original Red Dead, where it gives you that line to be able to drive to your destination. That's not in the original. I played the original for a comparison's sake. That first hour, you'd have to like eyeball the destination. But yeah, there's a lot of good quality of life stuff, but in terms of like actual performance, it needs some work. Besides that, there are some other things like you probably have seen clips online of like the rain. The rain is really bad. Like it almost makes the game unplayable because it's like so jarring and so hard to see. Yeah, that was something they definitely didn't do right. I still need to play more, obviously, just the amount of games. Like once SMT 5 came out the next day, yeah, I didn't go back to GTA. Will this holiday for sure, but yeah, kind of unimpressed at the moment, especially considering I was able to go back to like the Steam versions and see that they really kind of did a lazy job at it. So yeah, I'd probably wait for a sale on that one, or even just pick up the originals if you still can, just until they sort their shit out. Besides that, I think that's pretty much been it. Looking through my Steam library right here, I haven't played anything else, just mainly Battlefield and Halo, which we'll talk about here in a bit. But yeah, quite a busy week. In terms of releases coming out this week, we even got more with Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes. I was actually talking to my housemate here, and he said that this is apparently the first Pokemon release that's like a mainline one that hasn't been done by Game Freak, surprisingly. So said it was quite momentum, big momentum or momentum occasion for Pokemon fans in terms of that. Are you planning on picking up Pokemon Pearl or Diamond, Charlie?
I was looking into it because my mates who are like diehard Pokemon fans absolutely adore Diamond and Pearl, but from what they've been telling me, like from early leaks and stuff, these remakes don't look that promising. So I'm gonna hold off for a bit and wait and see. But there seems to be a lot of weird stuff going on. Like apparently it's more based on like Diamond and Pearl than the Platinum game, which added way more content and stuff. So there's not as much stuff as people hoped, and I think there's a lot of content also missing unless you like download like the day one patch and things. Like it seems like the game was kind of rushed out a little bit. So I don't know if reviews are out for it yet. I want to say they are because it comes out tomorrow at the time of recording, but I'm gonna hold off. Much like I'm glad I did with GTA, to be honest. So like
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't pick that one up. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'll just say if you want a Pokemon game, just pick up SMT 5. They're probably both $60. So yeah, just saying.
I think the
Also,
SMT is
yeah.
like nearly 70 over here. When I
Oh,
looked on
really?
Amazon the other day, it was like £65. I was like, geez, for a
Yeah.
Switch game, that's a lot.
Yeah, they did have DLC that dropped that same day for it, which is kind of weird for SMT5. Like, I'm really happy with the game, but they brought back Demi Fiend from Nocturne, and you can actually like fight the Fiends, which are some of the best battles in Nocturne and just some of the other SMT games. They brought back those characters through DLC to like fight, which is kind of a shame to see. It's like a $10 DLC, which I did buy. Yeah, just kind of weird. But yeah, that is weird that there is that like conversion rate for like new releases for you guys over there. Is that something that like always like every single Switch release has, or just
No,
with
it was
SMT5?
weird. Like no, normally Switch games are sort of like £50 to £60, but when I looked up SMT, it was like yeah, £65 on Amazon, which is really weird. So I don't know if it's just because it's like super popular, or they haven't manufactured as many copies in Europe or something. I'm not
Hmm,
sure.
that's
Obviously,
weird.
the older games are super hard to get hold of over here, so maybe that's got something to
Those are
do with it. I'm not
expensive as
sure.
well. Those are like over
Yeah.
100, which is crazy. Oh yeah, I remember you asking like whether SMT5 would be a good entry to like compared to Nocturne. And having played the introduction, I would say if you're gonna get into the SMT series, probably get in with 5. I think Nocturne's really good, but Nocturne doesn't really like explain a lot. So if it's your first SMT game, you're kind of going in the dark unless you have someone explaining stuff to you. They have like a
Okay.
lot better of like a transition and onboarding process with SMT5, which I like. Plus, it's just newer, right? So it's easy, like immediately going to be easier to play a game that just came out this year compared to like a 2003 remaster. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's your answer for a few of you that were wondering that have yet to play SMT, which you should. Anyways, yeah, releases this week on top of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. We also got Ruin King, which Charlie talked about a bit, a League of Legends story, as well as Hex Tech Mayhem. So yeah, if you're into League or in any into those genres, yeah, those are out this week. And also Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1, which I don't think I've actually heard of. Is this by some
It's
prominent dev?
by I think it's Frogware, which is like the devs that have been doing like Home games for like the past decade or something.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not one like I will be playing, but I know for people who like those games, I think they've all been pretty decent. So I feel like they come out every few years at this point. But it's also the guys
Yeah.
who did was it the Sinking City or something, which like kind of flopped.
Oh yeah, a few
But
years ago, right? They had like a bit
yeah,
of yeah.
so I think they took a break from Sherlock Holmes and now they've gone back to it because that flopped. So
Interesting. Yeah, I always see like Sherlock Holmes games like just randomly like on a PSN sale, and I'm like, when did these games drop?
yeah.
Because I almost never hear about them. So that's cool to see that finally makes an episode appearance. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up all the releases out this week. Probably this is like one of the last weeks full of gaming drops. I mean, there might be some games in December that I'm like forgetting, but like besides Halo Infinite's campaign, I can't really think of much else coming out this year. So yeah, kind of getting into that holiday lull, which is, for better or worse, good, right? Holiday time. But that just means, less games to pick up or try. So yeah. Anyways, we'll move on to gaming news. Quite a bit of news stories this week in terms of like delays and push forwards. So we'll get into that very soon here. But we'll start off with Warner Brothers and how they announced officially their new, quote unquote Smash clone, which is called Multiversus. I think we might have hinted at this or talked about this on like a past episode. Essentially, Jeff Grubb was kind of talking about this and how it didn't like have like that high of a budget. It was gonna be like a quick DC versus what is it, DC and like Cartoon Network or
It's
some
basically all
like
like
Warner
Warner
Brothers
Brothers
IPs. Yeah.
properties. Yeah.
I've seen some gameplay of it. It looks pretty interesting. I saw one clip online of Shaggy beating the shit out of Superman, which is pretty funny. So that's
Yeah.
immediately a good first impression of that game. But yeah, did they reveal how much like it costs or when it's coming out?
So it's gonna be free to play.
Okay.
It's coming out next year. It's gonna be on like PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. It's gonna have like cross-play support and stuff. Um, Overall, to be honest, I think it has a bigger budget than Jeff initially thought because the voice acting cast seems pretty big. They've got like Kevin Conroy coming back as Batman. The guy who played Shaggy in like the old Scooby Doo movies is playing
Oh
Shaggy in
damn.
this. Like Arya Stark from Game of Thrones is one of the characters that they've got Maisie Williams who played her in the
Damn.
show doing the voice. So overall, like the cast seems really strong, which I almost feel like is a direct like kind of slap in the face to Nickelodeon because that game had no voice acting at all, which
Did
was the
not.
recent like Smash clone. Yeah, it doesn't have anything. Um, but I don't know. It looked pretty promising. They had like a dev video where they were talking about how they want to make sure their netcode and hit detection stuff is really good, which is great because Smash is awful at that. It's never had good online, so if a Smash clone can do that better than actual Smash, I'll take it. The gameplay looked pretty fun. The characters look cool. I actually really like the designs, to be honest. I think they look quite unique and cool. Um, I'm not sure about the free to play model for a game like this because it's probably going to work similar to how Brawlhalla works, which is like Ubisoft's take on like a Smash Brothers style like platform fighter, where you can unlock characters with like in-game currency, but it's so like it takes so long that you can obviously just buy characters with real money, which I'm not sure about how that works with like pay to win and balancing and stuff. So I hope that doesn't break the game too much because how they usually do it is they'll have like the characters on free rotation, kind of like in League as well, where there'll be like a set amount of characters that you can just play for free and they swap out every week or so. But overall, it looks fun. They've got a cool selection of characters and stuff from like DC, Adventure Time. I think I saw like Steven Universe, obviously Scooby
Mm-hmm.
Doo, Game of Thrones. So they've got a lot of IPs that they can take stuff from. So I'm
Wait,
definitely
game.
excited to give it
They
a
have the
go.
Game of Thrones IP in there.
Yeah, that's what Stark
Gotcha.
is, because it's
Okay,
HBO, which is owned
gotcha.
by Warner Brothers. So,
God damn. Okay.
because it comes under that family, they've got access to that stuff.
And
So,
technically, couldn't they get like Joel and Ellie from the HBO series if they wanted to?
hey, maybe they might do a partnership with Sony or something. You never know.
Cool.
The way they teased it is that they hopefully want it to be a much bigger thing. Like that's why it's called multiverses, right? Like it's a multiverse of characters. So, I hope it does well because I like those style of games, and I wish there was more of them. Because we just, other than Smash, there's not much out there. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think it looks really interesting. I did also, they've got like a tech test happening at some point. I did sign up for that. Hopefully that's relatively soon because I'd like to get my hands on it. But yeah, it looks pretty promising so far.
Nice, right on. That does look a lot better than like what the rumors are talking about. That's cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'll probably sign up for that tech test too. I'm not really into like fighter games like that, but that's interesting. It's weird how like both we're getting this and we just got the release of the Nickelodeon's fighter. It's almost like they started
Yeah.
development right after Smash Bros came out and they saw how big that was, and then like this is the product of that or something like that. That's funny. Anyways, we'll get into some other news stories. So probably like the biggest one that you've probably seen updates on this week is have to do with Activision Blizzard yet again. This time it has to do with Bobby Kotick, the CEO. So there was like a warn. There's a Wall Street Journal article that came out earlier this week, essentially talking about how he like threatened to kill one of his assistants and knew about like a lot of like allegations, essentially, ahead of time, yet didn't really take action on it. So I think there was like one in Sledgehammer that he knew about, and other ones in other departments. Really good piece. I definitely recommend reading it. Essentially, the big developments happened this week. That initially came out, and then I believe Bobby Kotick came out with like a statement with like his internal team, and just essentially said that he doesn't plan on resigning, and that he wants to essentially gain back trust or something like that, which a lot of people aren't happy with. There's been strikes this week at Activision Blizzard. Further developments came in, I believe, like yesterday when Jim Ryan took a stance and essentially emailed like the employees at PlayStation saying that he found the statement that Activision has come out with like insufficient, and that he kind of like emailed them essentially asking what their plans are, regarding these allegations, kind of, taking a aggressive stance to make them, rethink their, negotiations with Activision Blizzard, obviously the publishers of Call of Duty and much more. And then just recently, actually, like a few hours before this recording, Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, did the same thing. Essentially the same thing that Jim Ryan did, where, they're, rethinking their negotiations with Activision Blizzard according to these allegations until, more clarifications come out, or the story further develops. At the moment, in terms of like his resignation, the board is very in favor of him staying on. That's not very surprising. He's a CEO that's in it for the money, right? So they probably trust him more than if he gets kicked out, because that probably means the stocks are going to go lower, which is what obviously they have a stake in. I think there's like a 0.6% subset of the stock. There's like a few investors that are very anti Bobby right now. Like they're trying to get him out. They have been vocal about this in the past apparently, and yet again they're kind of like staying their claim. But they are only like 0.6%. Like that's hardly much at all. So they're probably not being taken very serious. Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, this is going ongoing with like their lawsuits and everything like that. So, yeah, it's crazy how Activision Blizzard's story keeps piling and piling on. Definitely wild. Yeah, Charlie, what are your thoughts on the developments that we've heard this week on this story?
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that like Bobby knew about a lot of the stuff. Makes sense that he would know about it, but try and keep it secret. Like he's the head of like a massive corporation, right? Like they're all pretty scummy. I like it's so disheartening because like everybody knows that they want him gone, but there's nothing you can really do about it because we're just not in that position, right? Like we can talk about it as much as we want online, but the only people that can really affect stuff like that are the big boys like Microsoft and Sony. um, for instance, I know a lot of people were debating whether Microsoft should start like suspending sales of Activision published titles on the store. Kind of similar to what they did with CD Projekt and Cyberpunk, right? Like when that game was in a terrible state. I wouldn't be surprised if Xbox say, "Hey, we're gonna pull COD from the store until we get a straight answer from Activision about what they're actually gonna do to, you know, change how their work environment is, help protect their staff, that kind of thing, because it is important." And clearly Activision aren't taking it seriously enough. And I think the only way that is going to change is if something big and drastic like a drop in sales for a month or two is. Um, but it's one of those things. We'll just have to wait and see. I imagine it's a big conversation at both the heads of Sony and Microsoft right now, as well as Activision, right? So, yeah, I imagine we'll hear more about it in the next couple of weeks. It seems like every week something happens with Activision now. So, but yeah, either way, it sucks. I just hope that this does actually incite some change for once.
I saw a funny article by like Hard Drive, like the essentially the Onion for like gaming news, and
Yeah,
they're like Activision Blizzard renames Bobby
yeah, Bobby
Kotick or some
Kotick.
shit
Yeah,
like
I
that.
saw that.
That was hilarious. Just obviously poking fun at how they changed McCree's name and thought that that was a suitable response to everything going on, and like a good first step, which is like the least thing you should really be worrying about. So, yeah, I'm like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if we get to talk about this next week because probably more developments will happen in the coming days. Just given obviously the stance of them, Microsoft and Sony right now. So very interesting stuff. Hopefully that stuff gets sorted out. And yeah. Anyways, did you want to introduce this next story since obviously you're more in the know of League and Riot?
Yeah. So I kind of teased this when we were talking about what we've been playing. But basically, Riot, it wasn't like completely surprised, but I didn't know about it until the day it was happening. But they hosted like a small Riot Forge event, which is basically their publishing handle they opened a few years ago now, where they were basically getting in contact with smaller indie developers and things like that, and asking if they wanted to, work on games set in the League universe using their characters and things. We've heard of a couple games over the past few years that got announced. First, there was Convergence, which did show up at this event, but was announced I think Game Awards like 2019, which is like a side-scrolling like platformer that got shown off again. That's meant to be coming out next year, as well as Ruined King had like a shadow drop during the event, which is pretty cool. Which is the one I have been playing. And then they did talk briefly about Hextech Mayhem, which is the game. They announced it last week, and then it came out this week. And then they announced one new game, which is a like 3D platformer based on the characters Nunu and Willump, which is like a Eskimo type character with like this Yeti looking dude. It's made by the guys behind Guilt, if anyone remembers that, which was like a Stadia exclusive, as well as Rhyme, which is like the Zelda type game that came out a few years back, as well as Deadlight as well.
Damn.
They're a dev I actually really like. I loved Deadlight back on 360, and I did quite enjoy Rhyme actually. I never got to play Guilt just because it was on Stadia, right? So I never got around to that one. But it looked pretty cool. I love the devs. I like the characters of Nunu and Willump, so I'm excited to see what that game's like. That's also next year. It was in collaboration with Nintendo, which is quite cool. So it seems like Riot is starting to develop more of a relationship there. Hopefully, we'll see like League come on a Switch at some point because they have got the mobile game that's meant to be coming on a console at some point in the future. We don't really know yet, but hopefully this is a sign that that might happen. But overall, I thought it was a cool little event. I think they were teasing it over the weekend. I just didn't see about it until the day it happened. I think it was Wednesday. I think it's Tuesday or yesterday. I think it was Tuesday. But yeah, overall a pretty cool event, just showing off some like spin-off games being developed by third parties. I think it's a really cool idea because League is like it's a game that's got such a weird reputation, right? It's a pretty fun game, but overall like people don't want to enter it because it's got such a toxic community and it's an overwhelming like kind of game to get into, but the world and like characters are so interesting. But there's up until recently, there's not really been a way to experience that. Obviously, there's the animated series on Netflix, which I think is amazing and people should go and watch. Which is a great like introduction to the world, and then now we're starting to get games that explore those characters that aren't necessarily MOBAs, right? Like Ruined King, I think is also a great way if you want to know more League lore, but you're into turn-based RPGs. Like it's a really good game, and you don't need to know anything about League going in. So I think it's cool that they're stretching out to more indie developers to get them working on these IPs and funding the games and stuff. I think it's a really cool idea. So hopefully we get much more in the future because Riot are absolutely massive. So they could do so much with that IP.
Right on, right on. Yeah, Ruin King definitely looked interesting. I saw like an ad for it. Yeah, it does catch my interest. I'm just obviously playing a lot right now, but that does
Yeah.
look like a really fun turn-based RPG. But yeah, really cool stuff over there. Anyways, we'll talk about some delays here. So we got two of them just this week. The first one happened just today, or within the last day or so, and that's Capcom's Pragmata. Obviously, this is the game that we saw at the June PS5 event, I want to believe. That's the one that had like the little girl. I think it was the one with like the astronaut.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that got pushed to 2023. There was like a little adorable tweet that came out, and it had like the little girl with like a sign. It said sorry or something like that. Yeah, to be honest, I forgot this was coming out in 2022. Like,
Same.
I think it was like shown off for 2022 back in June for PS5. I was like, whoa, that's ages away. And like, here we are a year and a half away. And I'm like, wow, that's actually soon. So yeah, that's not surprising, honestly. Yeah, we haven't seen like really anything since that initial showcase, I want to say. But yeah, not really surprising. The game needs more time. It needs more time. It is an interesting game because obviously, it's made by Capcom, right? They've been on a roll lately with like their known IPs, so it's nice to see them do something that's so big that's like a new IP. So I've always been interested in seeing, what develops with that game in particular. So hopefully we'll see more in the coming year. And then the second one has to do with Saints Row. This is kind of like one of the first delays that we saw of the February games, right? Obviously, like currently as it stands, there's a lot of games coming out in February. So the first one that pushed their game back was Saints Row. It's quite a big delay too. It's going to August. Like I didn't see this coming, especially since they had like I think Game Informer had it covering for like the recent month for obviously the cover of their magazine, right? So yeah, it definitely did look rough from like the few videos I did see from Game Informer. So probably like a best decision, right? Yeah, I always thought it was surprising. Like this and Midnight Suns were like the two games I was surprised to see announced like in August and coming out already here like Q1. So both of those games being delayed wasn't very surprising to me in particular, but still kind of sad. Yeah, with those two, did you have any thoughts that you want to give?
Yeah, Pragmata I completely forgot existed until I saw the delay, right? And then it
Mm-hmm.
reminded me because we literally haven't seen anything since that reveal. But yeah, I'm not surprised. Like, take all the time they want. It's not like anyone's like hotly anticipating it, right? Because we don't have any expectations. So I think people are happy to wait for that. Saints Row is a weird one because I was actually talking about it with some mates the other day, saying how packed February was, and Saints Row was in a weird spot because it's jammed in between like Dying Light, Horizon, and
Elden Ring.
Destiny and Elden Ring, right? Like it was jammed right in the middle. Like I can't imagine it doing well. But clearly, it's not just that's the reason for the delay. It's a big delay, so clearly they need some more time. Like you, I did see some of the Game Informer stuff and thought it looked quite unpolished. To be honest, it looked very empty as well for like an open world game. But we'll see. It wasn't one I was planning to pick up anyway. I enjoy the Saints Row games for what they are, but I don't expect too much from them. So, yeah, doesn't surprise me that one got pushed at all.
I completely forgot. I played like an hour of Elden Ring this last week, and I want to give my thoughts, but I'll just save it for next week's episode. That's another game I played this
Yeah,
week,
I
so
played a bit as well actually.
so yeah, we'll talk about that next week maybe. I forgot about that. But yeah, I did enjoy my time with that. That's actually like one of the highlights of my week. How the fuck did I forget about that? But yeah, I'll talk about that next week. So there's a little tease. Anyways, there was a game that actually got pushed forward for once, which you often don't really see in the gaming industry, and that's Sifu. So this one's, personally probably very exciting for Charlie, right? I'm also really looking forward to this game. I think that's a good decision. I definitely think a push forward makes more sense than a push back, considering that, the whole reason they probably went to February is it's a quiet month, and if you would have pushed it back to like something like March, then that kind of, ruins the whole idea of going in February in the first place. So kind of like an ideal move from them if it's ready. Yeah, February 8th is a great date. I think that's going to be. I think like if you would have went February 1st, that might have been a bit better, just because it's still like a week away from like a bunch of the game releases or two. But that's a lot better than February 22nd, that's for sure. So I'll take it. Yeah, what'd you think about that being pushed forward?
Yeah, I'm obviously like and said I'm very excited about this game. So I'm glad it's getting pushed forward. It means it's going to be coming out before all the big hitters now, so I don't have to worry about dividing the time for it now, right? Like I was a bit worried because it was coming after Horizon, and obviously that's going to be a pretty big game to get through. So I think now it's coming out like 10 days before or something. Um, I imagine because I know if you buy like the deluxe edition, you get like 2 days early access or something. So I want to say it's like actually the 6th that's coming out or something. Um, But yeah, I'm very excited about it. They posted a couple videos today. One focusing on the combat, and then one on like the death mechanic and stuff. And yeah, it just looks so good. I can't wait for it. It looks more in depth than I thought. It actually seems very similar to Deathloop in a lot of ways, where you're getting like clues and stuff in between like runs and things. So yeah, I'm very excited about it. The combat looks amazing. The animations and stuff look really cool, and I just want a cool kung fu game. So I can't wait for that. It's coming out just after my birthday, so it's very close to being like a birthday treat. So I'll take it. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to Sifu.
Yeah, it's great to see a game get pushed forward for once. And speaking of push forwards, actually, Halo Infinite got quite a push forward when it got released literally this week, the multiplayer actually. So this one was kind of like a rumor at the very, tail end of last week. There was some like, insiders, reporting that it was going to come out on the 15th. And I thought it was probably true just because a lot of like credible insiders were all like saying it was true. But at the same time, I was like, that's a very weird move to just shadow drop a big thing like Halo Infinite the day of, right? Like that's something that you kind of want to give people like preparation for, like a day off, so that they can grind that multiplayer the day of. So I was kind of hesitant about it, but lo and behold, Monday morning came by, I forgot about it, and then I checked Twitter and it's like Halo Infinite's out now. I'm like, damn, let's go. So yeah, ever since Monday, I've tried to play at least a few matches every day. I've been enjoying it quite a bit. We'll talk about it, in the next news segment here, with our impressions of Battlefield. But yeah, did you have any thoughts on the Shadow Drop? What you thought of what they did, and overall the Halo's 25th anniversary?
Yeah, I thought it was a good move, to be honest, because it kind of stole Battlefield's thunder. And I thought that was a quite good idea. Although I have to wonder if maybe Microsoft did warn EA, because they have got a partnership with Battlefield, and they're just like, look, guys, we know it's your week, but we're gonna drop Halo. I thought it was a good shout. Obviously, it was the 20th anniversary of both Xbox and Halo, so it made a lot of sense. They probably wanted to release the full game on the 15th, but the campaign obviously wasn't ready, so that's why they've gone with the December 8th date. I imagine the multiplayer's been in a pretty stable state for a while, so it was kind of fine to release it now. They're calling it a beta, but to be honest, it's basically there, right? So yeah, I think it was a good idea. It's a shame it did leak. There's a lot of reasons why it did leak. There was stuff to do with like the store page having the 15th, and I think Pringles have got like some double XP like thing at the moment, and that website had a countdown for like the 15th or something. Like it was all very very poorly done. But it was a cool move nonetheless, and it worked out well. Like the game's blowing up, so yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that made a really smart decision there because obviously, exactly what you said, it's still Battlefield's thunder, right? Like you're in the middle of Call of Duty and Battlefield, competition, of course. Yeah, it also made the most sense because like it did feel like the only part of Halo Infinite that really felt ready ever since like September at least. So yeah, like you said, it's quote unquote beta, but really the only thing that's in beta right now is things like maybe the balancing and progression pass, which we'll talk about here in a bit. So yeah, was a really smart move ultimately. And anyways, our final news story is the fact that the Game Awards did drop their nominations this week. Yeah, quite controversial, as you I'm sure have seen on Twitter. We're probably not going to really talk about it this episode just because we are going to be saving that for like a highlight of next week, since we imagine a lot of stuff won't really be dropping next week since it's Thanksgiving week. So yeah, before Thanksgiving we'll quickly give our impressions of the nominees and what we think will win and all that, and then the following week we'll probably talk about like pretty much our predictions for what will be revealed, as Jeff has been pretty much like hyping up this year's Game Awards as like one of the best ever. So hopefully there'll be some cool announcements here this year. So yeah, look forward to that for the next 2 weeks. But in the meantime, we are going to talk about our impressions of Battlefield 2042 and Halo Infinite. So I guess we'll go in order of release. We'll start with Battlefield 2042. Yeah, give me your impressions on Battlefield 2042 and then I'll join in.
Yeah, so I might as well start with how much I've played. So according to the EA thing, I've played like 12 and a half hours. So I've played a decent chunk of it. Overall, I'm enjoying my time with Battlefield. I think like from foundation wise, I think the game is really fun. I think the changes they've made from Battlefield 4 are really good because overall that's what it's a sequel to, right? It's more of a sequel to Battlefield 4 than 105. And I think stuff like the 128 players is really cool. Even though I think at times it can be a bit weird because the maps are massive, especially some of the larger ones like what the hell's it called? But the snowy one, like that one's absolutely
That
insanely
one's
massive.
crazy. Yeah.
And at times it can be a bit weird, like going in between locations. It can be a bit of a trek. But once you find like a good spot to kind of like focus on, because each of the points in the game kind of feel like their own map, right? Like they're absolutely massive. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty positive on it. Obviously, performance is not where I would like it to be. It's still not great. And I think it's going to take a little while to iron that stuff out. They did release the day one patch today as of recording, which has boosted my performance a little bit, but it's still not great, especially comparing it to stuff like Halo and COD. So clearly, the game still does need a pretty decent amount of work performance wise on PC. I do know on console it's meant to perform pretty well, but it's meant to be filled with, I think, quite a few bugs. I haven't run into too much. It's more balancing issues. Stuff like the vehicles and things seem pretty strong. I'm sure most people have seen clips of the hovercraft and stuff, which is insanely broken, and gravity doesn't work quite right with them. So you can kind of drive up walls and stuff with them, which is quite funny. Um, but overall, I'm having a lot of fun. It's a Battlefield game, like it's gonna be buggy at launch. It does suck to the extent that it is quite buggy, and clearly it's gonna need a lot of work. They did announce they're delaying like the first season of the game. They're gonna talk about that early next year, so they can focus on bug fixing and balancing and stuff for now, because there is a quite a bit that needs to be done. But overall, I'm having fun with it. The gunplay is really cool. I'm enjoying most of the maps and stuff. So yeah, it's just been a fun time to go in with mates. I've missed playing a modern day Battlefield game. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Right on, right on. I haven't played nearly as much. I've maybe played like 2 hours, just because obviously that dropped the same day as SMT V, so
Yeah.
I clearly had priorities elsewhere. But yeah, that being said, my 2 hours have been nice. I've always viewed Battlefield as very different from COD. It gives you like a very different like feeling. Obviously, it's more, I'd say, slower pace in a different way. Obviously, um, yeah, there's more like strategy in terms of like your placement on the map, and it's just very different. I don't know how to word it. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I definitely see it more as a continuation to four, like you said. It really does feel very similar. 128 players has been crazy playing it on PC. Like, it's really cool to be like on the top down view of when you're clicking on the point that you want to spawn in, and you see all the bullets flying around, and then as you zoom out down to your character, it's crazy to just see the scale of everything. So many things flying around and people blowing up, and literally as Charlie said, like you could literally be playing on like point C1 and C2 for like the whole entire map. Like, be really invested in those two areas, and that's just like one of four places around the map. Like, it's crazy the massive scale. It really feels like a war going on. Yeah, it's really really fun. I definitely want to play more time into it. Yeah, performance hasn't been the best. It certainly has been a lot better than the beta. The beta was pretty abysmal, not gonna lie. So it's like acceptable now at least. It runs decent, but still needs some work, as Charlie said. I haven't actually tried the day one patch yet, so I'll definitely have to give that a go. Um, and yeah, nothing really too much. I did jump into like Battlefield 3 Conquest, so it's nice to play on like Caspian Border again, which is a map I haven't like visually seen in like almost a decade at this point. So that has been like quite a throwback. I honestly thought it was all right. Like, I definitely think my attention is on like the new game, right? Battlefield 2042 and all the new guns and maps, right? I was playing for the Battlefield 3, and it does feel nice to play it, but it definitely does feel like, I don't know. For me, it did feel like subpar compared to like obviously the new game itself. So that has really been where my attention has been in those new maps and exploring the new game. But as I said, I want to get more time into it. I actually haven't even picked it up. I've just been playing the EA Play trial, which has been like 10 hours. So it's nice. Like, it's nice to play this new release. And I'll be able to do that for like up to 10 hours, which, knowing me, I don't really play a lot of games nowadays. So like, this might just be like my copy of the game, because I probably won't even get past 10 hours. So it's like nice to have it for free. So there you go. So that's kind of hilarious. But yeah, I guess if you wanted to move on to Halo Infinite, or, choose whatever you
Yep.
want to do. Yeah. Give your thoughts.
So Halo, I've played according to Steam just over 10 hours. I'm quite enjoying it. I'm not a big Halo player, so I wasn't expecting to like super get into it. But I have been having a lot of fun. I do think it has its fair share of problems. I don't think it has anywhere near as many as COD or Battlefield does. But I still think it needs some work, particularly in progression, as I think everyone knows. I think the battle pass system is quite a mess. I haven't played it since they've done the tweaking today, with how like XP and stuff works. But overall, I'm having fun. There's some weird balancing issues with the weapons. Anything that isn't like the human guns seems to be quite weak, to be honest. Just like the AR's surprisingly strong compared to old Halo games. Obviously, the pistol's still pretty strong. The battle rifle's really good. But like the pulse rifle and like the other guns that are just like you can find in the world, the shotgun as well. Just all those guns seem extremely weak compared to anything else, which is a shame because it's all the whole idea of Halo is you spawn in with guns that are okay, and then you pick up guns that are way better. And I feel like it's almost the opposite in the game right now, where I would much rather use the guns I spawn with than anything I find in the world, which isn't ideal because it gets quite stale. I think that's why I never used to really like Halo too much, because other than like Reach and 4, you don't obviously pick loadouts. It's all about you spawn in with a gun and you learn what the spawns are for the different weapons in the map, right? And because right now the balance is you might as well just use the AR, and the pistol. There's no real like I don't feel like I have a need to pick up other guns other than, oh, I have a challenge to get kills with this gun, right? And it kind of changes the pacing of the map because everyone wants to level up, so they're all just kind of waiting by spawns of particular weapons, which I think is really poor balancing. And I don't know how they didn't predict that would happen. But other than that, it's pretty strong. There are a few maps here and there I don't like. And there seems to be a pretty small map pool, but I think that's just coming from COD, which has like 16 core multiplayer maps. Like I think this only has like 5 or 6. So it's quite a drastic drop, especially considering the amount of dev time this game has had. I'm surprised at the lack of maps.
They got an extra year, and we still have like 5 to 6 maps.
Yeah, it's surprising the lack of maps, especially because they're not like massive, right? For the just the normal quick play. I'm also not a fan that you can't just pick modes, especially when you have challenges that are tied to specific modes. I don't like that I have to just go into quick play and hope that I get the mode I want. I kind of get it because it's free to play. They probably don't want to have you just be able to pick whatever mode you want, right? But I wish that selection was there. Hopefully that'll be there at launch. But yeah, my main issue is with progression and stuff. I think I'm like level 5, nearly level 6. I got quite lucky because my weekly challenges were pretty simple, but like the mates I've been playing the game with for almost the entire time I've played, some of them have got more hours than me, but they're a lower level than me because they have challenges that they just can't complete because they're so outrageously difficult. It's just like they literally cannot progress, because the biggest problem with that XP system is, why should the player go into a game and actually be good? Because it makes no difference whether you're at the top of the leaderboard or at the bottom, or if you win or lose. There's no benefit to it right now, and I think that really needs to change. Because what's the point in getting kills or having a score on the scoreboard or a leaderboard entirely if none of it actually matters? Because when you leave the game, you don't get anything for it, which I think is something that definitely needs to change. Like if you're dropping like 30 kills and 2 deaths, you should be rewarded. Like, why are you not getting any XP for that at all unless you do a challenge? So yeah, the progression needs a lot of work, but overall I'm having fun with the game and I'm going to keep playing it. So
Nice. I definitely think out of the 3 shooters so far, I've played the most Halo, and I'm enjoying it the most, I'd say. Yeah, for me, just like the bare bone gameplay first, it feels like I'm playing like Xbox 360 or PS3, right? Like the time to kill, I was telling Charlie this, like it's longer. I feel like out of like all the shooters, like if I'm getting a shot in Halo, I can at least like play strategic and possibly still win that gunfight in a way, just because the time to kill is longer. Yeah, the balancing does need work. I think there's some guns that you could still find around and pick up that are better, like the skewer. I think I like if you can use it well, or like the sniper. But besides that, a lot of them are kind of trash, not gonna lie. Maps are kind of hit or miss. A lot of them are, kind of weak, I'd say, compared to like other Halo maps I've played with like past games as well. Yeah, like you said, I'm kind of surprised they got like an extra year of dev time, and we still have like very few maps. I've definitely seen a few of them come back and around like over and over again. Besides that, I am having a lot of fun with it. I think that bare bones gameplay is good, which is always, good to hear. It's just, it has a lot of weird issues. Like the fact that this game has such an addicting gameplay loop, but at the same time, like there's a challenge based progression system is just so weird. Like, how are they like playtesting at this at the studio? And like, I imagine like one of them just getting like a lot of kills and then just comes out of the menu and he's like, no challenges pretty much grant you any XP. It's just like that's a weird, bizarre decision, especially when time after time there's been plenty of games that have done progression right, but yet we still get games from like AAA studios that get it wrong, which just baffles me. There was like an update that I believe dropped today as of recording this on Thursday where there's a challenge that is like play any match. And essentially you get that challenge completed after every match that you play. So there is some consistent upgrade, progression there. But at the same time, that's rewarding everyone the same amount of XP after every game. So while that's a decent fix, that's not a good fix. Obviously, you still want to reward players that are performing well, giving them incentive. Like usually levels in these kind of games, imply that you're pretty good at the game or you spent a lot of time. There's usually a trade-off there that if you're good, you don't need to spend as much time to get to a high level. But it's still obtainable for those that are not. But in this one, it's just based on pure luck on the challenges and stuff like that, which is just sad to see. So in that aspect, I have seen why this is a beta. I feel like that's this and the obviously the balancing needs work. There has been other news around Halo as well. I believe like season 2 was pushed to like May, so it seems like they're going to be allowed to like work on season 1 for quite a bit of time at least, which is nice. Yeah, it's been a solid release. I think this has been great. I played like a few of the multiplayers on like the Master Chief Collection, but never really got into it. But Halo Infinite has me hooked. Yeah, especially big team battle. Those matches are so fun. Like Lily just talking about, I want to play right now. But like, yeah, it's just been very fun to play. I think it's going to be the shooter I easily drop the most hours in this holiday season. It's just, yeah, it's just the one that clicks for me. It just completely reminds me of like the old multiplayer games back on like the PS3, Xbox 360, for good reason. Obviously, Halo being one of those staples, right? But yeah, it's just nice to have a Halo Infinite multiplayer that hit strong. I already knew it was going to be decently solid because of the test, but it's nice to see that they still worked on some stuff. Yeah, just been very much enjoying my time with it. And yeah, any concluding thoughts before we wrap up, Charlie?
That's it.
Nice, nice. Well, as I said, next week, look forward to our nominee, pretty much going over the announcements and giving our thoughts on what will win, of course, giving our votes. And then the week after that will be our Game Awards, world premiere predictions. And then, of course, throughout both of those episodes, gaming news, of course, will be covered and what we've been playing. So look forward to that. But with that being said, we'll see you next week for episode 49. Take care.
See you later.